But again, welcome to day 2 of the 14th annual policy orientation. I was just told that for the first time in 14 years, basically, that policy orientation is trending nationally on Twitter. So if you're so inclined, if you're a tweeting person, it is hashtag TXPO2016. So thank you all for making this happen. Thank you for making it such an extraordinary couple of days so far, and it's only getting better. Right now, I want to introduce our prayer for the meal. Commissioner George P. Bush, we're so grateful to have you here. We all know you were elected land commissioner in November of 2014. He has an incredible background in the private sector and also working for great organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters. But one thing, Commissioner Bush, that we have talked about since yesterday, and we had Dakota Meyer, the Medal of Honor winner, here yesterday as our keynote speaker. And one thing I want to really recognize with you is your service in our military in Afghanistan, and what an incredible gift that was, because clearly you did not have to do that like so many of our amazing men and women in uniform, and really how it all ties together. That service to country and putting your life on the line is so amazing, and what we are able to do back home while not putting our lives on the line, but obviously working for a better Texas and a better America, and for securing freedom for our future generations is just such a gift. So thank you for your great service. Please help me welcome George P. Bush.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you all for being a part of such an incredible movement in the great state of Texas and keeping it free and prosperous. I want to thank my friends at TPPF for welcoming me and the GLO team this afternoon. Will you please join me in prayer? Father, we thank you for bringing us together to break bread over fellowship. We thank you for being blessed to live in the great state of Texas. But in your words, you have stated that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so we pray for our leadership to continue to fight for the things that you stand for: the value of life, the virtue of hard work, the aspirations of a better tomorrow for all of our people. We pray for our leadership to continue to fight for these values here in the great state of Texas. We ask for you to bless this food and our bodies for our service to you. We will continue to pray in your name for these important values. Amen.
Right now I have a couple of great introductions to make. I'm not sure if everyone has heard, but we have a new Texas Education Agency Commissioner. And he is a superstar, a former, maybe even not yet left member of the Dallas Independent School District Board, and a true innovator, a reformer, an extraordinary mind, a successful entrepreneur, and how grateful we are to have Mike Morath here with us today. Mike, please stand. Yes, he is only 17 years old. All right, I'm going to introduce our wonderful legislators. We have a long list here with us today. I'm going to go quickly. Let's save our great round of applause till the end when we can give them big kudos. First from the Senate, Paul Betancourt, Craig Estes, Bob Hall, Kelly Hancock, Don Huffines, Larry Taylor, Van Taylor, and Lois Kolkhorst. And from the House, Dwayne Bohack, Wayne Faircloth, Jason Isaac, I know y'all standing quick, Stephanie Click, Matt Krause, Rick Miller, Gilbert Pena, Matt Rinaldi, Ed Thompson, Paul Workman, John Ray, and Bill Zedler. Please help me thank all of our wonderful legislators. Did we forget anybody? Who did we forget? Who did we forget? Oh, I see pointings. Oh, Mr. Paul, I'm so sorry. Welcome. Anybody else? Thank you all so much. On behalf of our fantastic board of directors led by the extraordinary Wendy Gramm, we want to thank you all for being here with us today. I'd like to invite our panelists to come join me on the stage, and I'll introduce them as they're walking up because we want the most time spent with them and certainly not hearing from me. So if Senator Gramm and Lieutenant Governor Hutchison and Lieutenant Governor Patrick and Kent Grusendorf could join me on the stage. You know, in the Texas Declaration of Independence, our own founders wrote that their rebellion was justified. Now keep in mind, the Texas Declaration of Independence, this is what they wrote. Mexico has failed to establish any public system of education. Although possessed of almost boundless resources, unless a people are educated and enlightened, it is idle to expect the continuance of civil liberty or the capacity of self-government. When Mirabeau Lamar, the second president of the Republic of Texas, said that the cultivated mind is the guardian genius of democracy, he was not just expressing a pleasant wish on a political agenda with no particular urgency. He was expressing a concern for the very survival of freedom in the wild frontier. So, what a gift, what a privilege to have these gentlemen here with us today as we discuss what would probably most of you say is the most pressing issue. We have a lot of pressing issues, but the most pressing issue facing our society, facing Texas, facing the country, moving into the next generation, and that is our education system. Of course, first, all the way from Nevada, we have Lieutenant Governor Mark Hutchison, a friend from afar, a leader who has taken his state forward in education freedom and set the example for the rest of the country. And wait till you hear his story. It's extraordinary. Of course, our extraordinary friend in all things, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, one of Liberty's greatest champions of any generation in any sphere. I can personally attest to his passion, his dedication, and his understanding of the direct connection between education freedom and an American future of liberty and prosperity, and that one will never happen without the other. Lieutenant Governor Patrick, you are a hero. And finally, United States Senator Phil Gramm. What can be said about Senator Gramm that has not been said in admiration by his friends and in frustration by his defeated foes? For the senator, my friend and now longtime mentor, a lifetime already spent in freedom's cause is not enough. His continued engagement in education and this issue is a testament to his profound grasp of its importance to the American future. What a privilege to know a man so deeply motivated, not by personal gain, but by plain love of country. That one of the primary authors of the Reagan Revolution is with us to advance education freedom is an illustration of just how transformational it will and can be. And finally, to moderate the discussion, our own Kent Grusendorf, who has been around the halls of the Capitol and working on this issue for pretty much his entire life, serving the state legislature for 20 years and finishing that service as chairman of House Public Education, is our own Kent Grusendorf, director of our Center for Education Opportunity. Please help me welcome our very special guests.
Thank y'all, folks. The microphone's working. I'm going to follow up on one thing. I think we've got a panel of 3 political heroes here with us today. I really do. I mean, and I want to put a little footnote on those introductions. Lieutenant Governor Mark Hutchison from Nevada came all the way over here from Las Vegas to tell us what they did over there. Most transformational education program, I think, in the nation. It will change literally. In fact, Senator Hammond in the last panel compared it to the cell phone. It will not only change how we think about education, change how we deliver education, it will shift the focus from schooling to education. I think that's a good thing. A true hero, in my opinion, for helping shepherd through such a national, a bill that has such national implications. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Again, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, as we know, he beat an incumbent lieutenant governor. That's not an easy task. By 20 points. Nice. And he presided over, due to some rule changes, other things, he presided over the most productive and the most conservative Senate that I've seen in my lifetime. And Governor Patrick, you're a true political hero, in my opinion. And what can I say? What can I say about Phil Gramm? Brooke did a great job. I mean,
less the better.
You're one of our real heroes. But, you know, I'm thinking back, Senator Gramm. You were an economics professor at A&M, decided to run for Congress, served as both a Democrat and a Republican in Congress, ended up as a U.S. Senator, and you ran for president. And I would like to put my footnote on this. I really think the Republican Party would have been much better served, with all due respect to Senator Bob Dole, if you had won the nomination. And I know damn good and well that the country would be better off if you had ended your political career in the White House. So we're honored.
Yep.
We're honored to have you here today.
My mother thought
honored
the
to have
same.
all three of you. But Governor Hutchison, would you tell us? I mean, I was amazed at what y'all did in Nevada. It's everything most of us salivate over of what needs to be done in education. Can you tell us a little bit about the bill specifically, about your education savings account bill, and how you got it done?
Sure. It's great to be here with you. I'm honored to be here with this esteemed panel and my good friend Dan Patrick. When he tells me to come to Texas, I come to Texas. And you need to know, I hope I'm not going to start a protest, Governor, over this, but I have loved the Dallas Cowboys since the day I was born. I loved the Cowboys back when Roger Staubach and Craig Morton were fighting for the starting position. That's how far I go back. So it's great to be in Texas. My son-in-law went to Baylor, spent his first year in law school at Baylor, and so we'd find Austin. We just love being in Texas, and it's great to be here with you. Before I start, I'm going to be describing a bill that was crafted and thought carefully about and shepherded through the legislative process, particularly the Senate, with my colleague, and that's Senator Scott Hanna. Scott, where are you at? Because he's here with me as well. We can't recognize him enough. Here he is, right here. He's the state senator who introduced the bill, who was the sponsor of the bill. So I'm going to be summarizing his bill and what he did. It was extraordinary. You know, Nevada has got 2.7 million people. I know that's about as much as a suburb, you know, for a lot of places here in Texas. And 2 million of us are concentrated in one county, in Clark County. 2 million of us, which is where Las Vegas is, which is where I live. And we only have 2.7 million people. We've got 2 counties that have most of the population. And then we've got 15 other counties that are spread out. They're very rural, 300,000 people spread out through 15 counties. But we have concentrated in Clark County the 5th largest school district in the country, which is the Clark County School District. And it has struggled. I'm the product of this Clark County School District. My children, I got 6 children. All of them are products of this Clark County school system. But it has been a challenge for us. We have been on the bottom of all the good lists and on the top of all the bad lists. And we were like that for a long time. And in 2013, our governor, Brian Sandoval, said, we're going to change that. And I'll talk about the political dynamics if you'd like me to in a minute. But we were able to change it with some major education reforms. The governor would announce in his State of the State 25 education reforms. We got major education reforms, and we got 24 of those done, including education savings accounts. And so it was a great session for us, and it was really cutting edge for certainly the state of Nevada. And this is how the education savings account works. And I have to describe it in connection with what we call if you have a child, if you're a parent, a guardian has a child that is required to go to school in the state of Nevada, that's ages 7 through 18, you qualify. If you are somebody who's had a student in public school for 100 consecutive days, you qualify. And if you qualify, you then make an application to the secretary, the treasurer, excuse me, I was going to say Secretary of State, but the state treasurer, and you say, I'm going to take my child out of this school system, public school system, and I'm going to have this education savings account created. The treasurer will say, thank you very much, approves it, make sure you're eligible. 96% of students in the state of Nevada are eligible. That's compared to other states, for example, like Arizona, that has an education savings account, 22% are eligible. Mississippi and Tennessee have education savings account, as does Florida, but all of them are around 12%. I think Tennessee is like 2%. 96% of the students in Nevada qualify for education savings accounts, and it's universal. applies to everybody. And so if you qualify, you then say to the state of Nevada through the treasurer's office, I want to enter into a contract with the state treasurer. I will take my child out of the school system in exchange for an education savings account being created as me as a parent that I can then use for qualified education services, which of course includes tuition, enrollment costs, but it also includes things like tutoring, long-distance learning, online learning, transportation, materials, tutors. It's a broad range of education services. And then you get that money deposited into your education savings account, and then those qualified education entities can then be paid out of that education savings account. You get 51 if you're unless you have a disabled child or somebody who is in low-income families, you get 90% of our per-pupil funding. We currently fund at about $5,700 at the state level. That doesn't count county or the federal money. But at the state level, it's about $5,700. So you get $5,100. That's put into an education savings account, and $5,700 if you have a disabled student or someone who's in low income. And then you rock and roll, and you go enroll your students in whatever institution you want to enroll them in. And the state treasurer's office then will administer that program. Now, we haven't started it yet. The effective date was August for purposes of our regulations. And we start this year. In 2016 will be the first year that these education savings accounts will be available. So we're off to the races, but it's been a wonderful experience for us. I will tell you this in terms of the political forces and the challenges and how did we get it done. Here's what you need to know. In 2013, when I was in the state Senate, every single constitutional office and both houses of the legislature, other than the governor and the lieutenant governor, so we had the lieutenant governor and governor was a Republican, everybody else in the state leadership was Democrat. Every other constitutional office and every both houses of the legislature. In 2014, we were recipients of the red wave. That flipped. We got every single constitutional office turned Republican and both houses of the legislature. And that was a fantastic experience for us and gave us this opportunity. And we knew it was probably going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us. And so it had been before the Depression that we held both houses of the legislature and the governor's office in Nevada. So we knew this was probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us, and we got after it, and we got it passed, and thanks to Senator Hammond and many others, we were able to make that happen. All the usual forces that you think would oppose you did oppose us. Not only the teachers union, the administrators union, the school board, all of the school districts. Matter of fact, not all the school districts, the two largest, Washoe and Clark County, 2.3 million of the county's population out of 2.7 million opposed us. And it got passed anyway. And we had many education reform measures beyond that, including what I'll end with, and I'm happy to follow up on anything else, but I don't want to take too much time. But we also then passed what's called an opportunity scholarship. It was key to the education reforms. So the ESAs were universal. You qualify if you got to go to school. Now we have the Education Opportunity Scholarship, and that was means tested. That was for I believe about 185% above poverty level and below, you'd qualify for this Education Opportunity Scholarship. And how that is funded is business owners can decide that they would rather fund this private scholarship fund than pay up to $10,000 in payroll tax. So you would get up to $10,000 in a payroll tax credit for businesses who said, no, I'd rather put my money in the scholarship fund. And that's been a big benefit because it benefits not only the ESAs not only benefit everyone. Now for the low-income students, you got now another means, another mechanism to fund education choice, and you can get up to about $7,500 from that fund. But it's capped out at a certain amount with tax credits. But it's been a wonderful. Those two things. If we had done nothing else in the entire legislative session, but passed education savings account and that Nevada Opportunity Scholarship, now you have given every parent in the state of Nevada an opportunity to choose the school that's best for their children.
Great. Congratulations on that. Yet, you had a political opportunity and you took advantage of it.
That's right. We did.
And along those lines, Governor Patrick, can you sort of shed some light on where we are in Texas? I know you got an education choice bill out of the Senate. It didn't pass on the House. Where are we in Texas? What is the future? What do you think about the Nevada plan? What should we do going forward?
Well, first of all, I've gotten to know Mark over the last year and a half, really, of attending some conferences together. And when we talked this past summer, and he told me about what they had done. I said, you have to come to Texas and tell this story, so thanks to TPPF for making that possible. The second thing, and I said this to Mark earlier, you all have heard me talk a lot. I'm going to keep my words brief so you can hear more from him and the senator. But I want every senator in this room to stand for 5 seconds. I want to yield some time. Stand up, members. These are the first senators in the history of the state of Texas who passed a school choice bill with money attached to it. We had 19 out of 20 Republicans vote for the bill and 1 Democrat to get us our votes. And we had to break through. As Mark said earlier, when they took over the state, they knew this was their time. And I believed last session, I knew we'd have problems in the House, but I believed it was so important on so many levels to get a school choice bill out of the Senate. And I'm so appreciative of the senators who stood with the people, because 80% of the people, of the Republicans in the state of Texas on the referendum in 2012 support school choice. It's popular in your district with your voters. And secondly, even though we do not get much Democrat support, I don't think Mark got none. We had 1 in the Senate. We know it's popular with their constituents. I heard a phrase yesterday that I've now adopted. I didn't come this far to come this far.
That's good.
We will pass school choice again in the Senate. It will be a better bill next time, incorporating some of the things that Nevada has done. And as Senator Graham said last year when we did this conference, and you stood up so eloquently, as you always are, and you said, Dan, it needs to be available for every parent. We're going to make it available for every parent, as they've done in Nevada. But what they've done is, with these opportunity scholarships, is close the gap for the students who are poor to be able to get to those private schools, because under the ESAs, each student gets $5,100 of their $5,700. And so I've been drilling down already with Mark and Senator Hammond about specifically how some things are going to happen. And the truth is, they're not sure yet. They have to work through the rules of their agency, Nevada Education Agency. But we will have a chance to learn from their success and maybe some of their changes. So I can't think of anything more important. We always put protecting life, that's always the most important thing to do. Any elected official has to keep you and your family safe. But on a public policy issue, there is nothing that comes close to reforming education. We cannot turn around the healthcare crisis we have in this country. We can't turn around those who are in failing schools and failing communities and have a life of poverty ahead of them without reforming education. And as long as I'm Lieutenant Governor, this will be my #1 policy initiative. And I believe in the House, the votes are on the floor to pass it. That's what I believe. And lastly, I want Mike Morath again to stand up. Governor Abbott could not have made a finer choice than Mike Morath to be your new education commissioner. Mike, stand up. I'm so excited. For those of you who don't know, as a young man, and he does look 17, he was very successful in business and somewhere at a young age retired and dedicated his life to education, because he was in Big Brothers and had a little brother who at 18 graduated from school and couldn't read. And he ran for the school board and he won. I've learned more from Mike in the last 3 years that I've known him than almost anyone else about education. Working with him, working with our senators, we are going to make Texas #1 in education, because I didn't come this far to come this far. Thank you all.
Governor Patrick, we love your passion, and I might point out that in that 20-point victory you had, you were out openly campaigning for school choice.
Absolutely.
And you had a record number of Hispanics and women, and so sometimes some of us politically are afraid to broach these issues and make some people mad, but thank you for your leadership on the issue. Senator Gramm, as a recovering college professor and a recovering politician, I'd sort of like to get your take on just how important is this kind of concept to the future of society in Texas? And do you have any counsel or advice politically moving forward on how we make the kind of changes that need to be made in Texas?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here. Secondly, I want to thank both of you for your leadership. I think the foundation of America is opportunity. Not that everybody is equal. If your mama loves you and my mama didn't love me, we're not equal, and government can't make us equal. It's better to be pretty and rich and brilliant than it is to be like me. But equality is a fighting chance, a chance to get on the playing field and use your God-given ability. And our education system today makes a fraud out of equality of opportunity because people never get on the playing field. And I feel passionately about it because we're wasting people's lives. And there's a lot of talent out there that never gets discovered. And I want to discover it. Now, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? Let me try to define what I see as the problem. First of all, every day the case becomes more compelling for education, choice, and competition. Virtually every empirical study done today that's done by anybody other than the special interests that oppose the freedom of people to choose indicates that choice and competition work. The evidence is overwhelming. It's been mentioned, but in the polling data of people who actually voted in the 2012 primary, 84% of Republican primary voters are for total school choice for everybody. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a county in the state that fell below 70%. 2/3 of all Texans by polls are for school choice. 80% of Hispanics are for school choice. 71% of blacks are for school choice. Well, why have we been unable to do anything about it? This tidal wave of public opinion has occurred at a point where we have the most conservative government that we have ever had in the history of Texas, and yet nothing really has happened. Well, I think the answer is we've posed the question in a way that we can always win the debate, but we always lose any debate about changing public policy. And that is, we define what we're trying to do and who we're trying to benefit so narrowly that we have no political constituency. Normally, this subject is debated in debating parlors about school choice for disadvantaged children from failing districts. The problem is disadvantaged children in failing districts are represented by Democrats, and the Democrat Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of the National Education Association. So we define the problem in a way that we have no constituency. And as a result, we've got think tanks, social do-gooders, and a few disenfranchised parents against the entrenched power of the teachers' union, the school board and superintendent lobby, and basically a huge percentage of people that are active in the political process. So in that kind of contest, we lose. Now, why did Nevada win? Well, I'm sure there are a lot of reasons, but there's one reason I'm absolutely certain about. They had a proposal that had a constituency. And by including virtually everybody in the state, people wanted it. They didn't want it because they would have a good conscience. They wanted it because they benefited. And so if we're going to succeed in Texas, we've got to do it in a way that everybody has an opportunity to participate in the program, in my opinion. I also think we need to find a way to include the roughly 10% of our population that has already shown that they deeply care about this issue by homeschooling or by going to private schools. And I think it's simple to do it, because if you give a percentage of the money to kids who want to take their parents and they have made a decision to go to private school, you can then take part of the money that's left and begin at the lower income level and ultimately let the benefits flow to people that have already made the decision to go to private schools. What that then does is creates a whole new constituency. It basically makes all Catholic schools huge constituencies for this program. So I think if we're going to win, it's like Lincoln said of freedom: you can't preserve freedom unless everybody's free. We can't get choice unless everybody has choice. Final point. When we move forward with what the Lieutenant Governor's talking about, I can tell you exactly what is going to happen. We're going to have some of our own people who come and say, okay, I can vote for this, but we just want to apply this to the inner city. Or we want to exempt the rural areas because, and they'll have a good reason, you know, there's no alternative in the rural areas, but the real reason is the school system in Texas is the largest employer. The superintendent of schools in most counties is the highest salaried person in the county. And there is a lot of vested interest out there. The problem is, I don't care what you do, those people are going to be against any school choice, because anytime you give people a choice, you create a record, and when you create a record, they lose, because the evidence is overwhelming. So they're going to fight you as hard in letting one person have choice as if you let the whole state have choice. So why not do it where you've got a real, honest-to-God constituency?
I'd like for, and as I said in my opening remarks, you shared this with me last year, and seeing what Nevada has done, I totally agree, and we're going for every student and every parent. Yep. At least that's my plan. I'm just me, but that's my plan. I want the Lieutenant Governor, I want Mark to talk about two things. We get the opposition from some who say, well, we're taking money out of public schools. So he has a great answer for that. And secondly, addressing the homeschoolers or those in private schools about the money for tutoring. Again, the things that they have done, and Senator Hammond, great work, they have really tried to address every segment of the population moving forward. And so talk about those two issues, the public money, number one.
Well, the argument usually is you're just defunding public education is what you're just doing. You're taking away the money that I'd be going to the schools and the public schools, and we're just going to have a terrible result. It's just the opposite of that, because what moves with the student under our ESA is just the state money. The county money, the federal money, that stays within the public school system. And so actual per pupil funding increases under this. You take a student out of the public school system, $5,100 travels with that student, but the other $4,000 or $5,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on what county you're in, stays with the public school system. And so per pupil funding actually increases. So that was how we addressed that, and that's just kind of a red, I think that's just kind of a red herring. There's more money in a public school system. People should embrace this, should want this.
More money, fewer students.
That's right, more money, fewer students, just per pupil funding just increases. It's just the easy math.
And then the how you addressed homeschoolers and
yeah, and the education savings account can be used for private tutoring. It can be used for homeschooling parents who want to educate their children in a customized way with tutors and with other services that are available, including distance learning, online learning. We try to create as many opportunities, and as Senator Hammond says, he no longer calls it school choice, he calls it education choice, so that these homeschooling folks and others around the state have all the educational opportunities through this tutoring system that we created.
And like Texas, and we have a very strong, vibrant homeschool population, close to 300,000 estimated.
Yeah.
Now, your homeschoolers, they didn't want any strings attached either.
That's right.
So you gave them the freedom. So.
Yep. They as Senator Gramm says, I mean, everybody should benefit from this.
Yeah.
Everybody should have an opportunity to take advantage of this. I'll tell you, and to Senator Gramm's point, I told him this before, the one kickback we had was this requirement that you be in the public school system for 100 days consecutively before you could apply. And the parents who already had students in private schools, or other institutions where they were not in a public school, were not happy with that. And those are our natural constituents who would normally support us. And so we've tried to massage that a little bit. We had a special session, and we said it was the legislative intent of this bill. You may want to think about this. We said it was the legislative intent of this bill to include those who are going to kindergarten. They are not required by state law to go to school, so they didn't necessarily qualify under our law. And it was also our intent that all military families not have to have that 100-day consecutive public school requirement. So I agree with Senator Gramm, and I know you feel the same way, Governor. Just the broader and the more inclusive, the better.
And for those of you who do not know the numbers, we have about 5.9 million students in Texas that go to K through 12. Of that, 300,000 are homeschooled, 250,000 are in private school. So even as you advance this, as you've seen in other states where they have these programs, in your estimate, it's going to be a small percentage,
Right.
Because a lot of parents like their school. A lot of kids don't want to leave their friends.
Right.
But it gives the opportunity to everyone, from the disabled community to inner city to rural. It gives everyone, it gives parental choices, I like to call it.
Right. That's right.
I want to follow up on Senator Graham's point about the political dynamics and how you build this constituency. And one of the things that I thought was so amazing about the education savings accounts, you create this shopping list. And you actually change, instead of just sending money to school, you can do you've got a lot of other options. And on top of that, you could actually save some of those funds. If you don't spend it all this year,
That's right.
it
Rolls over.
accrues over, and you could actually use it for college. How important was that dynamic to building a new constituency? Because no other school choice program allows. To me, that's a big issue in building the constituency.
Well, our state treasurer is required to list out all of the educational opportunities, all of the entities that qualify, everybody who's available to engage in this new education choice. And just to have parents have that opportunity to understand what the choices are, I think is very helpful and beneficial. And then to continue to roll over those funds from year to year. And actually, the way that the law, and I think
But how did that affect the politics and getting your votes to get it passed? Was that an impact? To me, that looked like additional selling point.
Well, it was all the more inclusive, the more flexible, the more votes that we picked up.
Right.
And so that was important as we continued to pick up support. And these other education reforms that came into play were likewise important. I don't know what the dynamics are in Texas, but one of the things that you got to remember is you may have some opposition, right? And how do you deal with the opposition? Well, I'll tell you how we dealt with it. We just overwhelmed them. We had 25 different education reforms going on at one time. It was read by three. It was ELL funding. It was what we call victory schools and charter school expansions. And we created a school district that was just related to just charter schools that transformed failing public schools into charter schools that now had a district that was going to be administered by a state superintendent of charter schools. I mean, all this stuff that was going on. And so there was just a lot of things that
Tell them what you did at the very end. Like you talk about, I haven't come this far to come this far. You talk about the action the Republicans took in Nevada. Tell them what you did at the very end of session.
Well, as I mentioned, the Clark County School District is the 5th largest school district in the country, and there have been many, many attempts and studies and research and debates about breaking up that school system because it's just so large, and a lot of parents felt so unresponsive to their needs. Scott can maybe correct me, but I would say within the last hour, maybe the last 2 hours of our sine die, just before we sine died, we introduced a bill that called for the breakup of the school district within the last 2 hours of legislative session, passed the Senate, passed the House, it's done, and now we're breaking up the fifth largest school district in the country. So that was just kind of one more for good measure. But truly, 25 major education reforms. This was part of it. A lot going on, and so that you have to sometimes divide and conquer a little bit with your opponents.
Great. What about, we always face this problem. I think every state that has passed school choice goes through legal challenges.
Right.
Where are you on that front? And
Yeah, so three lawsuits have been filed, one by the ACLU, as you would imagine, and one by another group, education group in Nevada, and believe it or not, one by my law firm. I'm a lawyer by training, and my law firm, my lawsuit, is the only one that asks the court to declare the law constitutional. So we actually took a preemptive shot at that and joined the legal debate. But you're going to have a lot of legal challenges. And you know what the opposition either wins in the legislative realm, and if they can't win in the legislative realm, then they're going to go to the judicial realm. And we've had oral arguments on both of the cases by the ACLU and the other education group. The arguments are that that Nevada's violating the Blaine Amendment. We've got a Blaine Amendment. Do you have a Blaine Amendment here in Texas that forbids public funds from going to any kind of religious institutions, religious schools? That's the basis for one of the complaints. Another complaint is that the per pupil funding is going to decrease, and the money that was allocated by the legislature now is being taken from public education into other areas, and that violates our Constitution. So there's all these different challenges. And my lawsuit just says, look, this is clearly constitutional, declared constitutional, and let's get on with it. Because we're supposed to be funding parents and funding these education scholarship accounts by February, and my lawsuit just says, we got to get this done before February. And so we're working on it hard. But there are legal challenges, and that's going to be one of the obstacles that you have to overcome. But so far, it's been good. And I can't remember, I don't speak to this at the federal level. I believe this has been addressed at the federal level already favorably. Right. It's been addressed at the state of Arizona favorably. The one place that it was shot down was in Colorado, but that was a county, it was not a state ESA program. It was a county voucher program, which was much different than ESAs.
Senator Gramm, I was talking about that issue of being able to accrue your savings and let them roll over. To me, that kind of change as an economist would have a dramatic effect on restructuring, delivering the entire system. What do you think?
Well, look, we're getting ready to take on very powerful, entrenched political interest.
Right.
And so when you're going out to fight Goliath, you don't want just one smooth stone. You want 5. And so I think we need to do everything in the bill we can to expand our constituency. And the more broad-based it is, the better you're protected against all these lawsuits that will be filed. We don't have to make whole everybody in private schools the first year. But if you've got some kind of feedback mechanism that does it over time, you remember, and look, I think the bill you passed is wonderful. But when you're saying to people, okay, if your children are already in private school, you're out of this thing, you're basically saying to them, well, if you've got some that start in kindergarten, but a lot of people have already had their children. Right. I don't want, this is going to be a big battle. We're going to need a lot of troops. We're going to need a lot of reinforcements. Let's bring a big army when we come. Yeah. And if we can include people that are already homeschooling and in private schools, we do 2 things. One, suddenly you got 10% of the people in the state that are most activated because they sacrificed to do it, they're on our side. Right. Secondly, you protect yourself against a 14th Amendment type lawsuit that says, how do you justify excluding this practical nurse who works 8 hours at the hospital and 8 hours on private duty to send her 3 children to Catholic school, she's not getting any benefits. You've denied her the 14th Amendment.
Right.
So I think it's good politics. It makes us safer politically. I think it's going to be a very big battle. And your point about they didn't know where to start defending. When I was the author in the House of the Reagan budget in 1981, and we eliminated 3 Social Security benefits. We cut, out of a $100 billion budget, we cut $25 billion, okay? We were cutting so many things that the Democrats had a meeting to decide what to defend, and they decided to defend synthetic fuels. The point being, the bigger the battle,
Yeah.
the harder it is for them to fight it. Whereas if you just pick one little point, they bring their whole forces to bear, and you get beaten. But if we take them on just tooth and toenail for the whole thing, choice for everybody, for every Texan, and the deal about, well, you're including rich people. Well, look, rich people are already in private schools.
Right.
Okay? What you're doing is you're simply saying, we're not going to say in Texas that we're going to engage in the last bigotry that's acceptable in America, and that's bigotry against the successful. You know, why should somebody be cheated because they worked their ass off? I don't get it.
I know we're running short on time, but do we have time for a couple of questions? Who's in charge? 2 questions. Anybody from the senator's table over there? Any of the senators want to ask a question? Where's the microphone?
There's a question.
Any questions, folks?
Right there. To the right. To your left.
Yeah, I think I heard some examples, but Governor Hutchison, what constitutes the 4% that's not included in your program?
Yeah, good question. And I believe that's going to be fixed by this, these regulations from the Treasurer's Office that just came out after we were in a special session. But I believe that is those students who were going to kindergarten who were not required by state law to attend. So they didn't qualify. And so there was a small group of students who weren't compelled to go by state law, who were yet in the public school system, that didn't qualify. But if you take that away, if you say, you know, everybody, if you're in the public school system, I think it's 100%.
One more. Where's the microphone? Okay. Question back there? Nothing? All right, we're going to wrap it. Go ahead.
You have a question right here.
All
First
right.
question.
Can't see with the lights.
Just yell and we'll repeat it.
I've got children and I teach, so I can do both. While we all are for school choice and think it's the best thing for children, there are also possible abuses. There is a chain, supposedly, of schools run by essentially like madrasas that come in as charter schools. I know we don't want to have strong controls over the curriculum, but also we do want to be sure that the school itself doesn't undermine the country.
Right. And I'll tell you how we address that. The state treasurer's office is entitled to charge up to 3% from those grants for administrative purposes, and by law is required to, and regulation, I believe now, to audit those schools and to audit those educational institutions that qualify for things like performance and compliance with the state requirements. So there's an audit function, and I believe it was, and I can't remember if it's the law or the regulation, that up to that 10% of those facilities and those institutions will be audited, and if 5% are found to be or more out of compliance, then they all get audited.
Yeah,
Senator
I'm
Gramm.
going to get yelled at by Wendy for talking too much, but I got to respond to that question. How many people in public schools are undermining the country? And when parents run these schools and have the ability to move their child, they're going to end up removing these people. In fact, I had a state senator, a Republican, from a county that voted almost 90% for school choice, said to me, well, what about if somebody's preaching terrorism? And so I gave him the response, how many people preaching terrorism in public schools? Only you can't fire them. Parents will fix this problem. Right. That's the point.
That's right.
He also said, well, private schools fail. And I said, yeah, that's the point. Public schools don't. That's the problem.
Hey, Ken,
With that, I think we're going to let
Ken, I just want to close with something very quickly. It's not about winning policy party over party. It's not about what plan and specifics has to be exactly perfect. What it's really about is the future of our state and
Absolutely.
our country. President Bush, George W. invited Governor Abbott, Speaker Strauss, and myself to SMU a week before Christmas, before last session. And we all three went up there not really knowing what the purpose was. And his singular point to us was he wanted the three of us to understand his view as a Texan, as a former governor and president, the most important policy issue we would take up would be education. There was a study done, and I sent this information out to our senators during the last session, most of our senators, I believe, in Dallas. You can go precinct by precinct, a school district by school district, by zip code by zip code. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that in some zip codes over a 10-year period, 10 to 15 times more of the students went to prison than went to college. Mm-hmm. We have an epidemic of failing schools in the state. Of our 8,500 campuses, we rate about 300 of them as failures, and they educate several 100,000 children who have no hope and no future and should be closed, quite frankly, or put in an opportunity school district. We cannot tolerate this to continue much longer, or you're going to have a society in the near future of haves and have-nots, of educated and uneducated. And that leads to all type of systemic problems in our society and in our country. And if Texas is going to continue to grow, we're the 12th largest economy in the world today, if we're going to continue to grow as we're in population, another 10 to 15 million people in the next 20 years, if we're going to have an educated workforce to take advantage of the opportunities and overcome the challenges facing us, we must have an educated population. And every session that we do nothing, we lose about 5 years, because if you don't do it, we don't meet until 2017. If we don't accomplish it then, the first time we can do it is 2019. It takes another 2 years to implement it. 5 years, we've lost a generation. So this is not about political personalities. This is not about getting in arguments with people. This is not about getting mad with the other party or people in your own party. This is about doing what we must do for the future of our children and our grandchildren, and it's our generation, it's our time. We're the largest state in the country, and we must accomplish this goal.
And amen.
Very good, John.
Let's give these three political heroes a big hand. Thank you.
That's very good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Thank you all. What a gift to have you. I have nothing to add. That was extraordinary. Thank you for your incredible dedication to these children who will never know our names, but whose lives you will forever change. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day.